Hi, this is Sydney Heimbuck. This is my Lifespan Growth and Development research project presentation. My topic is serial killers and whether or not they are born or bred. I chose this topic because I'm very intrigued by serial killers and I guess like the reasoning and the psychology behind why they kill. And how they can commit how anybody can commit such a senseless murder without remorse or anything, and how these individuals lack humanity. And I felt like it kind of goes along with nature versus nurture, and that's kind of where when we were talking about that in the early chapters, that's what made me think of this specifically, and made me think that this might be an interesting topic to research. My original hypothesis was that serial killers are not born but bred. They're not born evil but turned into evil as a result of suffering childhood trauma. Something that kind of reminded me of this later on in our book we were talking about how when you're developing, being underdeveloped in like such minuscule areas can cause a problem later on. Yeah, like it can have like something so small can have a big effect on you later on in your life and affect you when you're an adult. And I think that this is an example of that, and this is that. You know, these individuals as children and in their formative years were abused physically, sexually, emotionally, and they were neglected by the people that they are supposed to be cared. The people that were supposed to like care for them and support and love them were hurting them, which I think only creates, you know, abuse creates abuse, and violence creates violence, and I think that happens here. Like that's all they know, and so they have like a twisted view of how things are, and really is unfortunate, and I think messes them up and turns them into evil people. I was able to find, in my research, I was able to find things that kind of backed up my thinking. Fortunately, I had a lot of tunnel vision when I did this project. I only thought that I was only looking for one thing, and I was only asking one type of question, but I wasn't asking the right questions, and I wasn't looking at the right things, and I wasn't looking at all the different like factors that come into play here, unfortunately. So, you know, I found comments made by criminal profilers that said that when asked, you know, specifically whether or not serial killers were born or bred, they said that there are definitely patterns that Robert Ressler said. There are definitely patterns that are identifiable in childhood common to serial killers: sexual abuse, emotional abuse, alcohol, drugs, and neglect at home. Later in that quote, which kind of messes up my whole theory and my hypothesis and my whole basis for my research, he had said, in my opinion, serial killers, unless there is mental illness present, are made, not born. So that like goes along with my thinking, but it also goes against it, because just as much as there is like there's a big pattern with serial killers that a lot of them have suffered childhood trauma and had terrible homes and childhoods. There's also a pattern, like just as much as there is childhood trauma, they also have mental disorders and mental illness, and it's just as they're both there, they're both at play. And so yeah, it kind of like, I wasn't paying attention to everything. I didn't look at that. I had seen it in a lot of the articles that it was also talking about mental illness and mental disorders, and I kind of ignored it a little bit. I was like, oh yeah, but I wasn't looking at it, and I should have branched off onto that and asked those questions and done that research. Because then I think a question that brings up in my mind anyways is, are you born with mental illness? Like, are you born with your mental disorder? I don't know. Like, part of me thinks yes, part of me thinks maybe not. Is it possible that, especially, so like, just specifically in the case of serial killers, is it possible that their mental illness and their disorder was kind of triggered and brought on by the abuse that they suffered as kids? Or, I mean, does it not matter? I don't know. I wish that I, like, kind of get a second chance to do all this all over again, or if I did it again, like, what I would change. I just would ask better questions. I would have, I would look at mental illness more. I would look into it more and try to understand the root of, you know, if it's something that you're just born with or not. I would have found, like, I would have, like, asked better questions. I wasn't asking the right questions. I wasn't looking at the right things. So my research that I found was interesting and like, it kind of helped me understand some things more, but it didn't prove what I'm trying to prove. So like, the question of whether or not serial killers are born or bred, I could not answer. I wish that, like, my research would have been better so I could answer that, or try to better answer it. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to. I think that makes me feel better. You know, psychologists, like world-renowned psychologists, still don't know the answer to this question. So I guess I couldn't really get the answer either. But I wish that I could give this presentation and have a better answer and not be so confused. But I started off doing what I thought was, like, right. I'm finding all this research. I'm like, this is great. This is awesome. You know, this is gonna prove what I was thinking. But kind of when I was looking back on it and when I was finishing up with, like, my conclusion and my compare and contrast, I realized that I was confused and that I was just, I thought I knew what I knew, and then I became confused over the research. So I think that, like, it still was, like, the research did prove to do its job because it kind of changed my own mind about my previous thinking. I think that both mental illness and childhood trauma kind of go hand in hand, and I almost think that you can't have one without the other. So that still, like, leaves a big question of whether or not serial killers are made or born that way. And I wish that, I could give an answer. And I'm sorry that I'm unable to. Thank you.